بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So it says وترك الاستعانة في الصب عليه لأنها ترف is it a fa? Look, fa with a funny thing in the end. لأنها ترف. It is a luxury. لا يليق بالمتعبد. فهي خلاف الأولى. It's not the best thing to do. أما الاستعانة في غسل الأعضاء نفسها فمكروه. Right? وفي إحضار الماء لا بأس بها ولا يقال إنها خلاف الأولى لثبوتها عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم في مواطن كثيرة. Okay. إلا لعذر فلا بأس به بالاستعانة مطلقا بل قد تجب ولو بأجرة المثل. So here, this is the question. If you've seen on the WhatsApp groups, I remember Sheikh Hamza Karamali very gently, he's very, very gentle, very gently telling me off for not like reading the Q&A, right? There's some key Q&A that he spent a long time doing, or Sheikh Amjad spent a long time doing. Excuse me. And you know, it's important to keep reading these things, not just myself, other people, of course. And so there's this question was, oh, I have a disabled relative. Am I obliged to help them make wudu and pray and things like that? Right. So we're going to talk about it here, and we're going to talk about it in nafaqah as well. Right. So bab al-nafaqah and here as well. So here you're saying, I have to pay somebody to help me make wudu. Well, aren't they obliged to help me make wudu? Right? It is tarafuh. It's not taraf. So taraf is a word. Taraf is a mutrafin. Taraf is a word. It is tarafuh, not taraf. أنه tarafuh. Here's the ha. Okay. Where do we get to? And we did this whole discussion last week, right? That you have to pay somebody to do it for you. Can't make wudu. So the zahir then is that you know, says وتجب على العاجز ولو بأجر مثل. Right? So the default is, so I'm going to just do an analogy here, right? Do I have to pay for my wife to make wudu? My wife needs some water to make wudu. I do not have to pay for that. She wants to go on Umrah. Do I have to pay for that? No. It's not part of her nafaqah. Okay? So, by extension, here's my son. He's 30. He's disabled. May Allah protect us all. Am I obliged to help him make wudu? Or help him make ghusl? Or do any of these things, right? When it comes to an act of worship, by default, you're not. Right? The default, you're not. That's not part of the nafaqah. Nafaqah is in worldly things. Right? So Wallahu alam, the default is not the case. Right? So now from the question, from the point where I've got to now, Wallahu alam, to the actual tahqiq of the answer is going to take me about 10 hours. I don't know how long it's going to take. Right? Because you need to basically take the mas'ala from lots of different things and keep checking, you know? Find the madhan of the mas'ala. Where would you find that discussion? Oh, it's in Bab al-Wudu. Oh, it's Bab here. And then sometimes it's in a random place. And then sometimes you're going to be like, fantastic. It's here. It's there. You know? But it's a tricky thing to do. And this is why, you know, let's say something like AI is going to have a very difficult time doing this. Because it's just, it needs to, you know, if you're looking for words, let's say like simple AI is like looking for combinations of words, right? That's what often it's doing. It's not actually obviously just understanding. It's just looking for combinations of words, and so it's quite complex in reality, like how to approach the issue. So just like people have to, you know, there's what's called AI engineers, like not AI. What is it? The people who do who like know how to ask the question the right way. What's it called? Um, there's a term for it. Not sure if it's AI engineer. I can't remember what it's called. Prompt engineering, yeah. So prompt engineering, same thing is it's a bit like that. Like imagine there's this sheikh and he has his students, right? And he's telling his students, okay, look, go here and look for this scholar in this place and try and see from that point of view. And he tells another one. So now they're doing the research. But it's very difficult for them to do that without the knack that that scholar has. You know what I'm saying? So it's quite a hard thing to do. Hadith is much easier to kind of research. It's a bit simpler. Not 100% simpler, but it is a bit simpler. But when it comes to fiqh, it's like how to even get there. And then so what AI will do then is will do something that, so for example, certain modern scholars will do is just start making very general, you know, things. It could be said that it's obligatory because it's nice, or that it would be cruel, or something like that, like something very lame, something very not tight, right? A tight answer is like, I've actually got very, very close. Here's an answer that's already there and is very, very close to what we're talking about, such that there is no fariq. There's no difference, right? So you come along and you say, oh, because you don't have to pay for water for your wife, that means you don't have to help her make wudu if she was disabled, right? And if she doesn't have to help her, then you don't have to help anybody else you have to support, right? And because they mention you have to pay, the assumption is that there's nobody to do that, even if there is somebody to do it for them, right? So, there's certain assumptions you have to take it from a certain angles, right? So that's the difference between an AI slash even a modern scholar who's not really mutamadhib, like he doesn't really know the madhahib properly, has very loose understandings, right? General understandings. Oh, I'm Shafi, we follow Sahih Hadith. The Hadith mentions be nice to people, therefore it's obligatory. Like, come on, bro. It's very, very, very general. Very, very general. Right? Does that make sense? Remember this discussion I had with Sheikh Yaqub Maikas was, it was in Jordan and what was it? We were in Jordan and uh, during COVID, and so they originally you couldn't leave the house at all, right? So then you can leave the house, but the masjids were closed. Okay. And then the masjids were open. So the question is, so they banned it. You can't go to Jummah. There's no Jummah. Okay. So now they haven't banned it, but they have allowed it. So the question is now, is it obligatory? So given that there is a risk, like if I go to Jummah, I am putting myself at risk, or I'm putting other people around me at risk in general. So like, how does this work? Is it now obligatory or is it now just jaiz? So the way he would work was try and find nadha'ir, similar discussions. Plagues have happened. Similar, very, very similar discussions, as opposed to, oh, Umum al-Balwa. Like it's very loose. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's general difficult. Like because it poses a general difficulty. Like that's not how we answer questions. It's not close enough. So that's why sometimes you're like, you've got one kind of like thought stem of a thought coming from this way, another stem of a thought coming that way. Certain texts that support this idea, certain texts, but it's not close enough, and you're just stuck, right? And you need somebody who is on a much higher level to actually be able to do that. Okay, make sense? Da, 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 da. And he says, تعبيري بالعذر أعم من تعبيره بالضرورة. What's the difference between عذر and ضرورة? What are the levels of difficulty? We're talking about difficulty. We're talking about four levels. I couldn't remember. Okay, so what does darura mean? What does that mean? Ammar? Exactly, life or death, right? When we say darura, we're talking about the five things. If I didn't, if I didn't have somebody to make wudu, it would be impossible, or it would result in my death. It would result in the loss of my limb. It would result in the loss of my property. It would result in my not knowing who my father is or my mother is, lineage. It would result in me being sexually abused. May Allah protect us all. It would result in my losing my mind, losing my eyesight. Like if I can do it if I open my eyes, but the doctor says if you open your eyes, right? I just had an operation to my eyes. I cannot take these things off my eyes for the next 48 hours. So that's darura. I can do it, but if I took these things off, I would lose my eyesight. I will never be able to see again. Right? So that's darura. So it says, so he said, وَتَعْبِيري بِالْعُذْرِ أَعَمْ مِنْ تَعْبِيري بِالضَّرُورَةِ. Okay, are we talking about darura here? We're not talking about darura, right? Okay, what's less than darura then? What's the next level down? Haja, right? Good. Haja. So this is al-haja al-multahaqa bil-darura, right? Al-haja al-multahaqa bil-darura. It's close enough, right? So it's a difficulty. It is not an issue of life and death. You are not going to die, right? If I don't have medical insurance, I was in America, North America, for 1 year without medical insurance. I didn't. I'm not going to die, but it's very difficult. Something happened. I could be in a big mess, right? Like I could have been a huge mess. I slip up and it's like, oh my God, I have to pay $30,000. I'm like, this is really hard, you know? So it is al-haja, but it's not darura. I'm not going to die, right? I'm not going to die. I don't have a bank account. You're not going to die. But it's very difficult to deal without a bank and not have a bank account. Extremely difficult. Just work with cash. Oh, I can't do my job. Oh, I can't pay for this. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't. So many things you can't do. So many things you can't do, right? Having an iPhone, a smartphone, right? Having a smartphone is it's very difficult not to have a smartphone because there's so many things in so many places in the world you just can't do anything without it. Right? You're waiting in line. Download this app. Like I don't have this app. Well, feel like your phone. I don't have a phone, right? So it becomes very difficult, right? But that's not darura though, right? The need to look at a beautiful woman in the face, even with lust, because you might marry her. That's not darura. You're not going to die, right? It's not a darura. But it'd be very difficult if you could marry, if the whole world had to marry somebody they've never seen before and then live with this person forever. That'd be very difficult, right? There's many things in life that like that, right? Um, uh, the difficulty of focusing throughout the whole prayer. I need to have the niyyah throughout my whole prayer. Or throughout my whole wudu. That's very difficult. I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, you could ask people. Um, um, you could, um, you know, that you could survive, but it should be very, very hard. right? It'd just be very hard. So there's many things that are like that, where the difficulty of fasting while traveling, right? And then what's going to happen is this haja is going to increase, increase, increase because it becomes, in itself, it's harder. Like they vary drastically. Haja varies, and it also varies in how widespread it is. So the more widespread and the harder it is, the closer it is to darura, and the more effect it's going to have, right? Versus, something else, right? Okay, and then we have the other angle. What's the other side of it? So that's like level 1 and 2, and then on 4, what's the other side of that? We have it's difficulty. It is a difficulty, but it is something what? It is not recognized by Sharia because it is what? When I'm praying, it takes time away from me. So like I should be excused from praying. When I go on Hajj, it costs time and money. Therefore, I should be excused. When I fast, I feel hungry. So I should be excused. Hmm. So mashaqqa means difficulty. It's not a significant there's no significant mashaqqa, right? So it's like it's a difficulty that is negligible, right? It's negligible. So here you're going to say there's a difficulty. Why does Shia not recognize it? Because A, it's negligible, or B, right? And this is a side point, right? If there was a command that did not have any difficulty in it, do you know what we would say? We would probably say it's not a command. So a taklif, ilzam ma fihi kulfa. Moral responsibility is making you do something difficult. If it wasn't difficult, Allah wouldn't ask you to do it. So that doesn't make any sense. So somebody comes along and says, "Ad-din yusr, habibi." So yes, but a taklif means difficulty. So they can't be the same, right? Like taklif means making you do something difficult. You would not be asked to do something or be rewarded for doing something if it wasn't difficult. There would be no point, right? So it's not true that every single difficulty brings ease. It's not true because the difficulty could be A, negligible, or B, maqsood min haythu huwa. It's sort of in and of itself. So the hunger of fasting is sort of in and of itself. The cost of paying zakat is what you're doing in zakat. So you cannot come along and say zakat is not obligatory because the maqasid sharia is hifth al-mal. You know what I'm saying? That would be stupid. Like that's the whole point, Habibi. Yeah, but I paid $14 million. Habibi, you only paid $40 million because you have $160 million. That's why in savings. So that's why you paid 40. If that's a fourth, sorry. You have 1,600 million. You have $1,600,000. So that's why you paid $40,000 in, right? So you lost money, that's true, but that was maqsood min haythu huwa, right? Does that make sense? So top level, life or death. Bottom level, negligible or not negligible. It is serious, right? Right? It is significant, right? But it's sort of in and of itself. Now, here's an issue. Sometimes things become harder than other times. Let's say wearing hijab. Like wearing hijab, you stick out like a sore thumb. You know what I'm saying? You look weird. You look different. Like, you know, Ammar goes to the office. I mean, having a beard is not like it's not weird. It's like it's kind of cool these days, right? There was a time in certain places where having a beard is weird, but like, having a beard is not like strange. Like it's all right. You just have well-kept beard and you don't look so weird. It's not so like, oh, I'm Muslim. Okay, how relevant is that to you? You know? Shaking hands after COVID, not a big deal. Um, oh, I have health, dietary restrictions, just like the vegan guy down the other side in the office. Not a big deal, right? It's not a big deal. Whereas for the woman, she walks into the office immediately, oh, you look weird, sister, right? Now that's a mashaqqa. it is not maqsood min haythu here. It's not sought on itself. And it's not asliya. It wasn't there to begin with, right? It wasn't there to begin with. 100 years ago, you can see pictures, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, that wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be like, oh, she wears hijab. It's not like a thing because it's quite common to cover your head. It's quite a normal thing to do. So like, wearing a bonnet, that's quite a normal thing to do. So it's like slightly different. It's not a big deal. So, so things do change, it's true, right? But what we're interested in is those four levels. So level 1, darura, level 2, haja. Level it's 2. Mashaqqa yasira, very negligible, small difficulty, or mashaqqa mu'tabara, it's a significant, recognizable difficulty, but maqsood min haythu hiya, right? It's sort of in and of itself, such as jihad. Oh, Habibi, I'm not obliged to go and fight in jihad because I might die. That's the point, right? Oh, I'm a firefighter and I can't go into the fire because it's dangerous. That's your job, Habibi. That's your job, right? So that does not alleviate you from that obligation. Does that make sense? You following, Jawad? So it has two the category number 4 has two considerations. It's either negligible, you're whining for no reason, right? Or you're talking about a problem that is sort of, but the Sharia is seeking that difficulty out itself, right? Now, many people, what they'll do is they'll look at 4 and treat it as if it is 3 or 5. That's what they're doing, right? So, Okay, so now what about number 3? 3 is mutaraddid. 3 is somewhere in between. 3 is you could look at it as 4 or you could look at it as 2. It is definitely not number 1. We're not talking about darura, right? But some scholars will look at it as negligible, others will look at it as considerable. Okay? Does that make sense? So whenever we look at the Sharia, looking at hadith, we're looking at a ruling, we're looking at difficulty in life, we're looking at change from halal to haram. We're looking at these 4 levels. Life or death, very difficult. The other side is negligible, just grow up and deal with the responsibility of life. And then something between where is this, you could look at it from both points of view. You could look at it as very significant or not very significant, right? So now udhr is not a title. Udhr is not a technical term. It means here just unless you have an excuse. That is not a term, right? So he's saying you've used the word darura, which is way up there, and I'm saying udhr, which is probably somewhere between level 1, level 2, level 3, possibly even level 1, right? So sometimes the Sharia does change for what's called tahsiniyat, right? Things that make things like a little bit different, easier, right? There's a particular reason for doing it, right? It can sometimes happen like that, right? So when he says udhr, you mean like you have a reason for doing that, right? So now this whole discussion, if you look at, do I have to fast? Am I excused from fasting? Am I excused from Jum'ah? When you go to a'dhar or Jum'ah, they will all fit under 1, 2, 3. Okay? So when I'm discussing, am I obliged to go to Jum'ah? We already know that if it's in category number 1, okay, you're not obliged to go to Jum'ah. Easy. Okay? If you're in category number 2, it's easy. You're not obliged to go to Jum'ah. You have an excuse. The question is, the scenario you're asking me about right now, is that in category number 3 or category number 2? Does that make sense? Like, so now you're going to have a debate. Oh, Ibn Hajar says you're excused, Ramli says you're not. What are they doing? They're trying to say, we're stuck in 3 and we're trying to put it in, is it in 4 or is it in 2? If it was 2, you would be excused. because it's mulhaq. It's treated as like al-haja tanzil manzil darura. Difficulty shall be treated as duress. Okay, i.e. when it's close enough to it. But if it isn't close enough and it's when we put it in category number 4, then khalas, it's just difficult to deal with it. Does that make sense? So medical insurance in England, category number 4. Medical insurance in North America, category number 2. Does that make sense? Right? So it's a really important breakdown, right? And just in your notes, put C, Ashbah wa Nadha'ir, Suyuti. Okay? We are dealing with these things day and night in fiqh, day and night, right? When we say, oh, innamal a'malu bin niyat, but that only applies to the beginning of wudu, what are we saying? This is in category number 2. It would be too difficult to ask people to focus throughout the whole of wudu. Why is it innamal a'malu bin niyat? Okay, this, it's, what is it? The scholars, some of them say, for example, in the beginning of the prayer, you have to have it, the niyyah, from the beginning of Allahu Akbar, the whole time. And some of them say no, right? Al-muqarana al-urfiyya is acceptable. Why? Difficulty, right? Difficulty. When they say difficulty, they're trying to say which of these 4 levels, right? And some things are genuinely category number 3. It's a debate. We in the Shafi school, we debate. Is it A? Is it, we go back and forward. That's the game that we play, right? This is the skill set that we're learning, right? The skill set that we're learning, right? The judge is dealing with situations which are, this has gone to the Court of Appeal or to the Supreme Court because it's actually a tricky situation. Here is a 5-year-old who has demonstrated the thought process of an adult. Should I treat them as an adult or should I treat them as a child? Right? In this murder, in this theft, in this whatever it is. Right? It's a tricky situation. One lawyer saying, no, this is not the behavior of an adult. The other lawyer is saying, yes, this is the behavior of an adult. One precedent is saying, we treat it as an adult from this point of view, but not in this point of view. Right? And so it's tricky situations. Right? We can go back and forward. Right? This is knowledge, right? In the arts, and even my brother is a what's it called? A consultant, doctor, right? He's there in ER, and people come to him and they're like, "This is a tricky situation." He's like, "Okay, we're doing this, this, this." It's not a textbook answer, right? So now we've now moved on from obvious to less obvious, right? This person, like, does that make sense? So things are obviously in category number 1 or obviously in category number 4. That's easy, or not? That's not a discussion. The question is it in 2 or is it in 3? And then if it's in 3, I now have to put it into, I now have to sit with it and try and organize it again, research it again, and try and put it into, do I put it in 4 or do I put it in 3? Oh, sorry, in 2, or do I maybe look at it from 2 points of view, right? So notice here, right? There's now, this is now the fiqh of the, so this is the, the difficulties. He's saying, like, do you mean from this point of view or from this point of view? Are you talking about getting the water itself, or are you talking about putting it on your limbs? Does that make sense? Right? So then we're going to start dividing it up a little bit, right? Donkey hair is najas. You can't pray with donkey hair on you. Okay, but I ride a donkey every day. Okay, so if you ride a donkey every day, you will be excused. It's in category number 2. Okay, well, what about me? I saw a donkey yesterday. Am I excused? No, you're not. You haven't, it doesn't apply to you. Does it make sense? But as for the word other, that's not a term. Right? Cat owners, the same thing. Cat owners, because more is going to be overlooked for them. The person who visits the cat. So I'm praying at your house and you have 18 cats. It's not the same. For you, more cat hair will be excused than for me. Right? Aren't you guys both Desi? You're not allowed to have cats. I thought cats were makruh tahrimi for this. Yeah. Billy, right? It's called a Billy or Billy. Is it with a shadda on the lamb? Shadda, yeah. Shadday, Sharia, yes. MashaAllah, we both can't spell. Glad. Two Pakistanis that can't write save the knife. Like me. Alhamdulillah. Autocorrect. Alhamdulillah. AI world, right? Okay, Bismillah. So he says من تعبيره بالضرورة وإذا استعان بمن يصب عليه okay بالشدة okay وإذا استعان بمن يصب عليه what's another thing فيقف المعين عن يساره. The person who is helping ندبا should stand ندبا to his left. لأنه أعون, it helps more. وأمكن, it's more practical. وأحسن في الأدب. والبداءة you guys you have a dhamma on the big word buda'a. I'm pretty sure it's buda'a. Yes, there we go. Well, buda'atu, it's not a very common verbal structure. Fu'ala. One second, Ammar. Well, buda'atu, where do we get to? Bi'a'lahu, to start at the top of the face. Go ahead, Ammar.
I have from the matan وإن استعان جعله عن يمينه. It depends on whose perspective it's from, or
maybe he's correcting it. فيقف جعله عن فيقف عن يمينه. Yeah, so عن يساره, right? He stands to the left. So it says عن يساره. The guy stands to his left. And it says ويقف حامل المنديل على يمينه. Person carrying the towel should be on the right. Okay, sorry about that. Does it make sense? So yeah, it seems to be different to the matan. Allahu a'lam. So perhaps Al-Hafid Walid al-Iraqi, perhaps he changed it, and then and so that's why he's not mentioning that he's correcting it. Does that make sense? So here when he's saying, oh, he mentioned Udhr, i.e. al-Iraqi, but as for Ibn Muhammadi, maybe he said something else. Does that make sense?
so if I'm honest, I'm still a bit lost on who is writing what, and that feels important.
So the matan is written by al-Muhammadi in the whatever century, in the 5th century. Walid al-Iraqi comes in the like 8th or 9th century and tweaks the book. He does his tahqiq. So tahqiq, was it? Tahrir Tanqih al-Lubab. He does his Tanqih al-Lubab, okay, in whatever the 9th century, like 300 years later, he comes along and said, this is a nice matan, I want to change it. Okay. Along comes Zakaria Ansari and says, yeah, I'm just going to tidy up a little bit more and do his Tahrir Tanqih al-Lubab. So what I'm trying to say is I would imagine that the matan originally says one thing. Wali ad-Din Iraqi changed that, and then he changes some other things here and there. And when he changes Wali ad-Din Iraqi's text, he says, oh, by the way, when he said this and I said this, I did it for this reason. And he's not mentioning all the way back to Muhammad. Does that make sense? So that's why you're finding a difference between what we have here and what you have in the matan, and and on top of that, he's not even explaining that he changed it.
Okay.
Does that
So
make sense?
تحفة الطلاب لشيخ الإسلام is not the same as
It is
تحرير.
that Tuhfat al-Tullab is the sharh of Zakir Ansari on so this is Tuhfat al-Tullab, yeah. So you're saying in Tuhfat
Right. So
al-Tullab you
it's
have
it's
something
his
else?
شرح of his own
His
تحرير.
sharh of his own tweak of Iraqi's tweak of Muhammadi's work.
Okay. أحسن بارك الله فيك.
So you're saying that the Tuhfat al-Tullab actually has an yaminihi?
No, I was just I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get it straight. So there's
There's
5 books here, including the Hashim,
there
right?
is 5 books, that is correct. 5 books.
Yeah.
The original matan, the tweak of the matan, the second tweak of the matan, the sharh on the matan, and the hashia on that. That is correct. And now you know, in a very painful way, why a Salafi shouldn't come along and say, no, we need to revisit the madhahib. Because it's already been processed. You see that? What we're seeing is called processing of the deen. The way they see it is, like Imam Shafi came along, he had a kind of like a first look at the Sunnah, knew some hadith, didn't some other hadith, gave some fatwa, and everybody just followed him, right? That's it. We're Shafi, just follow him. And that's not fair because Imam Shafi doesn't know everything, and he himself said that. But the Shafis, they just blindly followed him anyway, right? That's their rhetoric. Our rhetoric is that didn't happen. What are you talking about? Like we're not even referring to Imam Shafi once, have we? I mean, I guess in the beginning of the class, we actually never quoting Imam Shafi. So Imam Shafi is not our God, you know. And this is a phrase, subhanAllah, that one of the early Malikis said. He said, "Lesnu abidan li Malik," like we're not Imam Malik's slaves. You're like we're not like, oh, he said it, therefore it's true. It's not like that. We're part of a discussion here, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now notice though, what are the reasons why it's sunnah? So you're saying it is sunnah. Okay, you're saying that in Allah's eyes, Allah wants me to have I'm camping with Ammar and I need him to pour the water for me. So I say, Ammar, can you just stand to my left? Okay. And I said, why did you do that? Why did you say why? Because you were cognizant of the fact that you were going to die soon, and cognizant of the fact that you need to maximize the benefit you did in life. And so you worshipped Allah by having Ammar stand to your left. Okay. How do you know Allah wants you to do that? لأنه أعون وأمكن وأحسن في الأدب. Is that a dalil, Habibi? Like that's the dalil? Is that a verse of the Quran? Is that a hadith? So what kind of dalil are we using here? Like how do you know that that's what Allah wants you to do? Right? So we have to understand that particularly when it comes to sunnahs, they will use sometimes very, very flimsy proofs, right? Meaning what they're trying to say it is better. Like we say, well, how much better? Right? How much better? So for something to be sunnah, it has to be better. So you say, well, how much better? 1% better. Oh, okay. Right. It's not a big deal, right? As opposed to 99% better, right? So is it better to pray by yourself? Or is it better to pray in jama'ah in the masjid? Oh, it's much, much better, right? So you say it is sunnah to pray in the masjid in jama'ah, and it is sunnah to pray to when you are pouring for somebody else that you are to their left. But when you say sunnah, It's not really the same sense. What he's saying is, well, it would be practically better. So you could imagine Allah would prefer that than something else because it would make, etc. And so we are making a claim. We are talking on behalf of Allah. We're doing ijtihad, right? We're doing taqawwul ala Allah, right? We are ascribing opinions to Allah using evidence. The evidence is not super strong then. That's all. And we're not trying to prove very much. We're just trying to say that it would be marginally better. Does that make sense? So that's why other madhahib will use different terms. They'll say yustahab, right? Yufaddal, right? Wa min al-hasan. They'll say things like that. They won't say sunnah because sunnah gives a sense that the Prophet did it. Does that make sense? Like you have a hadith for that. Right? It's where we will not make a distinction. And in usul al-fiqh, we say there's no distinction between nadab and hasan and mustahab and marghub and sunnah. It's all the same. Like from marginally better to vastly superior is the same concept. It means it is good and not obligatory. That's called sunnah. That's called mandub. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we have to be cognizant of that. So again, this is where our Salafi friends are going to get a bit ticked off. They're like, you just say stuff without any dalil. Yeah. Say, well, that's true, but I know what I'm doing. Right. I know what I'm doing. Right. I understand that it's not very clear, but it is more obvious. Okay. Let's do the opposite. Would it be recommended to do something that is less useful, less practical, and shows less adab? No. Okay. So therefore, right, the flip side is it would be better. I'm not saying it's wajib, Habibi. Right? Wajib will be like just making it the Sharia go. I'm just saying it's better to do that. Does that make sense? So we just have to know what we're doing. That's all. Right? Amari is clear. Muhammad is clear.
Yes.
Okay. Clear as mud, as they say. Okay. والبداءة في غسل وجهه بأعلاه للاتباع. So here للاتباع. Aha, you have a hadith. ولأنه أشرف لأنه محل السجود وفي اليدين والرجلين بالأصابع, the toes and fingers, لا بالمرفق والكعب, right? Not with the elbow and the heel. وإن صب عليه غيره, even if someone else is pouring for him. Okay? So here Zakaria Ansari is saying, even if somebody else is pouring for you, okay, you do not start with the elbow and you do not start with the heel. You always start with the fingers and you always start with the toes. So again, the whole civilizational concept. Do we blindly follow Imam Shafi'i? No. Do we blindly follow Imam al-Ghazali, Imam Juwayni? No. Do we blindly follow Imam Nawawi? No. Do we blindly follow Zakaria Ansari? No. How do I know that? Look, here's Sharqawi. Sharqawi says, ضعيف والمعتمد أنه إن صب عليه غيره يبدأ بالمرفق والكعب ومثل ذلك لو توضأ من حنفية from a tap أو توضأ بنفسه من نحو إبريق. Okay, so if you're pouring straight from a jug, or if you're pouring from a tap, then you pour onto your elbow, he's saying, right? Or from a tap, you would pour from your elbow, right? And others disagree with this. This is Sharqawi's position here. Others disagree, right? So you can just put a little note there. That's not necessarily agreed upon. Okay, makes sense? But the point is, Sharqawi is correcting Zakaria Ansari is correcting Nawawi is correcting Ghazali is correcting Shafi'i. This is all one big family discussion, right? This is a discussion. There's no real pure taqlid, right? There's levels of taqlid, right? But there's no real pure 100%. You are right because of who you are. Does that make sense?
What about the case where, like, for example, people say for example, Imam Ahmad was approached on like the hadith, and he said, oh, because the qawl of Shafi'i, or like the way we say in Shafi'i, إذا قال شيخان, uh,
Yeah, so that's
the
general.
madhab.
That's generally the case. It is not 100% the case. So it is true to say that from the time of Sayyidina Umar to our time, the nisbah, the percentage of taqlid is increasing. So Sayyidina Umar has nobody to do taqlid of other than Allah and His Messenger. Sayyidina Ali is listening to Sayyidina Umar. Ibn Abbas, Sayyidina Umar said this, Sayyidina Umar did that. There's a precedent. So whenever you have somebody before you, there's a level of taqlid. But Ibn Abbas is not a muqallid fully, but he's to some extent doing taqlid, right? The students of Ibn Abbas to some extent doing taqlid, right? Imam Malik to some extent doing taqlid, right? Imam Shafi to some extent doing taqlid. It's not pure ijtihad, nor is it pure taqlid. And so what happens is generation after generation after generation, bit by bit by bit by bit, the ijtihad decreases and the taqlid increases, right? And that's called, or you can call it, or you can say the maturity of the opinions increase and the openness of things decrease, right? But is it 100% taqlid? Zakaria Ansari said it. He's Shaykh al-Islam. Whatever he says is right. So we call him Shaykh al-Islam, but that doesn't mean that every single thing he said is right. Right? It's not literally the case. Does that make sense? So in the other class, I don't know which class it was.
Yes.
In this class. It was in this class. Yes, last week. Remember, we saw that Ramli went against Nawawi on the issue of zakat al-fitr. Do you still have to pay zakat al-fitr if you have debts? Right? So it happens. So Ramli is weighing up the different positions. Rafi'i's different positions in different books, and Imam Nawawi's. So the fact that you're weighing things up, it means you're on their level. Right? It's not pure taqlid. Right? It's not pure. You're doing your PhD, right? And there's 10 research papers on a similar idea. You're going to weigh them up and find out where to develop. That's exactly what we're doing. You didn't do pure taqlid, otherwise you would not deserve to have a PhD. They would not give you the piece of paper because you didn't do anything. But what are you doing is you're looking critically at previous thing, seeing the discussion, accepting certain things, and building. That's what everybody's doing. And there's certain things you will disagree. You'll say, yes, there are 10 papers. All of them miss this discussion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But like in your world, are you going to question the atom? You're not going to question the atom. You're not going to question, I don't know. So there's certain basic things that if you started questioning in your PhD, it'll be ridiculous. They'll say there's no need to do that. Because that's already dealt with. That's called taqlid. That's already dealt with. We already know this, right? You're going to have certain things in your thesis, which is this is assumed, and this is now questioned, right? And then certain things that are assumed that you will challenge. Does that make sense? And then over time, if the challenge to those things that are being assumed becomes greater and greater, eventually we'll say this is actually wrong, you know? The ancient Romans, material science using lead. Lead is very useful, right, for piping. But, like this is a useful thing. And then over time, objections, and then eventually that's a ridiculous thing to do. Why would you use lead for piping that's poisonous, right? And then it flips. Things flip, right? And we see that in the Shafi school. We see that in the other schools. It exists, right?
Yeah. So like for example, in my field, like when we read a paper, we check whether it's the opinion of the writer or it's like scientifically agreed upon concept. So if it's the opinion, then you can argue against it. But if it's something that's already like,
and here's something in your world, if you expressed an opinion that has already been expressed, that's a problem. So you said, I think this, and now in your viva, when somebody's critiquing your PhD, they're going to say Muhammad Hashid did not do his research properly, or in fact he's stealing ideas, because that's already been said. So just like in your world, If something has already been said, you have to cite it and either agree or disagree. Similarly, in our world, we have to do that. They will call it's taqlid. We call it scholarship. But like, no, just go Quran and Sunnah. So imagine if your world, it's like asking you in your world to do Quran and Sunnah. No, 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 no. Just like forget all papers that are written in the last 100 years. That'd be a ridiculous thing to do. So you say, Muhammad, you need to think in a fresh way, you need to be more open-minded. Just forget all these people. Let's rethink science, right? It's not a good paper at all. So what you're going to do is incrementally find out what's already been said on the exact discussion that you're trying to look at, okay? On that exact thing, what has come up, what are the problems, and you build on those problems, right? And then so now you are part of civilization. Every PhD is part of civilization. As opposed to someone like me who just says, oh, why would you use that plastic? Plastic's bad for your health, which is an unsophisticated, silly comment. It's not part of the discussion that you're doing, right? Nobody in your department or in your field would have any respect for the comment because it's silly. Does that make sense? So this is what we have with the Salafi movement: is you just come in, you don't do the research properly, you don't know the discussions that we're having, and you just kind of like just ignore everything and just come to silly conclusions that don't really mean anything, right? And they are useful to other silly people who don't know what we're talking about. So, other people who also have heard that plastics have problems would also listen to me, even though it's just totally silly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So note these things, put it down and say, here it says da'if wal mu'tamad. What does this mean? Okay, fine. It's not relied upon. But what it means is this is yet another fossil, right? As we're going through the strata of civilization, another fossil that indicates that pure taqlid never happened and the doors of ijtihad were never closed. Does that make sense? Just note it, right? Inshallah, your grandchildren will see your copy of the book and be like, oh yeah, I see it. Okay. This is وَالتَّعْبِيرِ فِي الْيَدَيْنِ بِالْأَصَابِعِ أَوْلَى مِنْ تَعْبِيرِهِ فِيهِمَا بِالْكَفَّيْنِ. Do you start with the hands or start with the fingers? You start with the fingers. وفي الرأس بمقدمه وتقدم بيان كيفية مسحه. Right, you start with the beginning of the front of the head. وترك النفض, right, to not shake off the water. للماء. This lam is lam التقوية. لأن النقض كالتبري. Right, التبري, right? This is the Hamza Jawad. Ammar, were you in my easy class as well? No, Jawad, you in the class. Muhammad Hashi, you in the class, right? Remember in Bab of the Hamza, we're looking at what we can do with the Hamza, right? The Hamza at the end of the, you can say things like qara'a and qara, right? So bari with a Hamza and bari with a shadda, and yatabarra and yatabarra, right? At-tabarru, right? To acquit yourself of something, and at-tabarri. Okay, you can do both. So what's happening here is that the Hamza has changed into a ya, and then it's now on the path to tafa'il as opposed to tafa'ul. Okay? Jawad and Muhammad?
Yes.
Jawad, can you remember that discussion? Yeah? Okay. كالتبري من العبادة. It's like, oh, I hate this, right? It's not good, right? So he's not saying it's makruh, he's just saying it's sunnah not to do it. That's all. It's better not to do it. أي فهو خلاف الأولى على المعتمد, right? وفعله صلى الله عليه وسلم لبيان الجواز أو لعذر, right? I'm about to sit at my desk. Here's a towel. No, Habibi, it's sunnah not to dry yourself. Okay, well, it's haram to destroy property. You're gonna sit there dripping all over your computer or somebody else's computer for that matter, right? Or in a book, mashallah, your textbook has water dripped all over it. What are you doing, right? So إلا لعذر. So general principle, something that is khilaf al-awla or makruh can become sunnah لمصلحة راجحة, right? For a better reason, right? The class has already started. Don't pray your sunnahs after dhuhr because you should attend the class. Okay, why? Sunnah to pray after dhuhr. Yeah, I know, but yeah, you're in a class. The class is more important than the sunnah. Oh, okay. Even if the class is not obligatory, generally, right? It's going to be more important. The class has started, right? It's not you're listening to the recording, it's that you are, the class is live, and so it's more important to be in the live class, right? كالتبري من عبادة وترك التنشيف من بلل الماء لأنه أثر عبادة بلا حاجة unless you need to من زيادته فإن كان ثم حاجة كبرد وعصاق. What does it say? والتصاق نجاسة. That's a ta. والتصاق نجاسة فلا يسر تركه, right? So you're scared that, for example, najasa might go onto you and stick to you. You're scared that it's cold. You're going to drip everywhere. إلا لحاجة, right? So general principle, the makruh can become sunnah through a need. خلاف الأولى can become awla for a need, right? Just like the haram can become wajib for a ضرورة, right? وأن يقول آخره أي الوضوء أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم اجعلني من التوابين واجعلني من المطهرين, and others add واجعلني من عبادك الصالحين, and it says سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك, but not in the bathroom. Leave the bathroom and say that, right? لخبر مسلم من توضأ فأحسن الوضوء, right? What does it mean to أحسن الوضوء? Make wudu properly and focus, right? And focus on what you're doing. Give me 1 second. I need to move. يا رب استغفر. فتحت أو فتحت ثم قال أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله إلى قوله ورسوله فتحت أو فتحت. You can have a shadda or no shadda. أبواب الجنة الثمانية يدخل من أيها شاء. وزاد الترمذي عليه ما بعده. وزاد الترمذي عليه ما بعده
إلى المتطهرين
أو إلى quote المتطهرين وجعل من عبادك right. اللهم اجعلني من التوابين وجعلني من المتطهرين. وروى الحاكم الباقي, right, وصححه وهو من زيادة كذا, right. So he basically adding these things. So again, it doesn't matter if they're actually right or wrong, right? It's not a big deal. They just basically, this is how we do with du'as. Just anything that's possibly correct or not, anything that's not wrong, we're going to add, right? So as long as it's not fabricated or clearly a mistake, we're just going to add it, you know. And then some other adhkar from the Sahaba or anything else, we'll add them. It's not a problem. وكذا قولي, and I added وغيرها أي وغير مذكورات كإتيانه بالذكر المذكورة متوجها متوجها للقبلة. Shouldn't it be like that? How does it have in the hashia? متوجه القبلة. I guess you could say that متوجه القبلة, but متوجها للقبلة, facing the قبلة كما في حالتي الوضوء. كما في حالتي الوضوء, like the two situations of wudu. I don't know what that means. والغسل, shouldn't it be حالتي الوضوء والغسل? Not sure why I'm saying كما في حالتي الوضوء, in the two situations of wudu. I don't quite why he would say that. You would imagine he would say كما في حالتي الوضوء والغسل, as you would in the situation of wudu and ghusl. Allahu alam. The point is facing the Qibla. وكالسواك والنية, using siwak, والنية من أول سنن الوضوء, right? To begin all the way from beginning to have your niyyah, right? كما مر. والجمع فيها بين القلب واللسان والدلك, right? So your heart is there, your tongue is involved. Delk, right? Which is makruh to avoid. So basically just sticking your hand under the tap, right? So you're having a shower and just put your arm under the shower. That's fine, but it's makruh to do that. You should wipe your arm, wipe your face, wipe your feet, right? As the Malikis do. وإطالة الغرة, right? And to go onto your ears, go onto the past your neck, onto your hair. With your foot, with your arm, you go all the way up to and not including your shoulders. And similarly with your feet, you go up to but not including your knees, right? وإطالة الغر والتحجيل وغسل النزعتين, right? Which is to the side of your face. مع الوجه وموضع التحذيف والصدغ, so going onto the basically the beginning parts of your hair, right? These are all, صدغ is your temple, right? These are all areas that are recommended, right? Not obligatory, recommended. And he says ومكروهاتها الإسراف, right? So israf is generally makruh, right? So when is if israf haram? When it's you're doing nothing with the money. So you had some fries, you bought the fries and you just threw them on the floor, right? As opposed to you ate some of them and the rest of them were kind of covered in ketchup and not very nice, so you just threw them away, right? That's not good. That's not haram, right? But you just bought some fries and threw them away. Bought some more fries, threw them away. Buy some more fries, throw them away, right? You buy a car, drive it off a cliff. Buy another car, drive it off a cliff. Like, why'd you do that? So you can have 10 Ferraris, it's fine, right? But you can't just drive it off a cliff. Okay? So it says الإسراف وهو أخذ الماء زيادة عما يكفي العضو وإن لم يزد على ثلاثة فليس ذلك مكرر مع قوله وزيادة على ثلاث. ومحل كراهة الإسراف إذا كان الماء مملوكا له, it's yours, right? أو مباحا, it's nobody's. فإن كان موقوفا حرم, right? So again, using water unwisely as opposed to you just pour for no reason whatsoever. You just open the faucet. So you're not trying. It's not like I like the sound of the water running. It's not like I just want to see how long it goes for, and I just was lazy, so I couldn't be bothered to get up and turn it off, right? So what I'm talking about is just like you just pouring water away for nothing. That's just itlaf al-mal. So itlaf al-mal, right? This is a problem, right? Go ahead.
Sorry, so it's considered mubah if it's nobody's water?
No, it's considered makruh if it's nobody's water.
Okay, that's what I thought.
When he says mubah, what he means is أو mubahan, meaning not that it is mubah, the water is mubah,
Okay, yes.
right? It's just there, right? It's the sea, right? So it's like a river going past you. So the river is going past you. This water does not belong to anybody. You have the full right to scoop up water and take it with you, right? So now you just
Right.
waste that water, right? So you use more than you need to. That's makruh. But now that's my river, and you say, Fareed, can I use your river to do a wudu? I say yes, but don't waste the water. So then you go and waste the water. It's now haram. Right. Okay. Okay. في الماء ولو بشط نهر لخبر أبي داود بإسناد صحيح عن عبد الله بن مغفل قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنه سيكون في هذه الأمة قوم يعتدون, they cross the lines في الطهور والدعاء, right? So this is one of the things, some ulama, for example, criticizing this extremely long du'as in what's it called? In Taraweeh, right? It's the last, the last rak'ah of witr and your last half of Ramadan, doing like a 4-hour qunut, right? And so if you're sincere, that's fine. But it's not really the way the Salaf used to do things, right? So the Salaf used to be quiet, right? And do their own thing, right? Everybody was kind of doing their own thing. That's the general idea. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, so in dua as well, it's like dua turns from a sincere dua to showbiz, right? Very, very easy. وَالزِّيَادَةُ عَلَى الثَّلَاثِ وَالنَّقْصُ مِنْهَا. Similarly, it is makruh to do more or less than 3 washings of each limb. لخبر أبي داود وغيره وهو صحيح أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم توضأ ثلاثا 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 ثم قال هكذا الوضوء فمن زاد على هذا أو نقص فقد أساء وظلم. وذكر كراهة النقص من زيادة وكراهته من حيث الاقتصار على الغسلة الثانية فلا ينافي كونها سنة في ذاتها. Right, so washing the second wash is sunnah. The third wash is sunnah. Not doing the third wash is makruh. So it is not true to say doing the second wash is makruh. Does that make sense? Doing the second wash of your arm is sunnah, whether or not it is followed up by the third. But not doing the third wash is offensive, right? Does that make sense? So washing your arm twice is sunnah from the point of view that it's not just one, but makruh from the point of view that it's not 3. Does that make sense? He says, فَلَا يُنَافِي كَوْنَهُ سُنَّةً فِي ذَاتِهَا. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's like saying, if the sun is rising, if the sun is about to rise, the sun is about to rise in 1 minute. What is the hukm on praying Fajr 1 minute before sunrise? Wajib and haram. It's wajib and it's haram. What are you talking about? Well, it's wajib from the point of view that you have to pray. It's haram from the point of view of ta'khir. Like delaying it to that time is haram, right? But praying at that time is wajib, right? So from 2 points of view, right? How do you describe this? I killed somebody, put a prayer mat over their dead body, and then prayed on top of them. So my prayer, how do you describe it? Well, I describe it as wajib and haram at the same time. It's haram because I'm praying on someone's dead body, right? And wajib from the point of view that it's dhuhr, right? Two different aspects, right? 2 different aspects totally. Okay, وغيرها أي من زيادة كالاستياك للصائم بعد زوال is makruh, right? So that's makruh من حيث الصوم, right? والوضوء للجنب في ماء راكد. So making wudu in still water, the water again becomes used, right? Or in janaba. كراكد ولو كثيرا, even if it is a large body of water. بلا عذر, unless you're excused. كالغسل right. لا غسل الرأس فلا يكره, it's not offensive لأنه الأصل إذ لا تحصل به النظافة, بخلاف غسل الخف يكره لأنه what is it? Something? لأنه يعيبه. You wiped your khufs in a swimming pool, right? You wash your shoes in a swimming pool. لأنه يعيبه بلا فائدة. You made the swimming pool all kind of murky for no reason. That's makruh. وشرطه, that's where we are, right?
I guess we technically did the shara't. It was like شيء واحد.
That's what it says. وشرطه كون
سنة.
الماء.
وهو شرط واحد وهو أن يكون ماء مطلقا لا غير.
Right. عند عند المتوضئ فلا يصح الوضوء بمستعمل، والإسلام فلا يصح من كافر لأنه عبادة وليس هو من أهلها. Right? He's not able to do that. والتمييز فلا يصح وضوء غير مميز كطفل ومجنون لذلك. So طفل meaning a little kid who's like 3 or 4. Right? So now when you get to 6, 7, 8, now the kid is like, I know what I'm doing. The kid is sane. Right? The kid is sane. So it says here, وَأَمَّا تَمَامُ السَّبْعِ فَلَيْسَ بِشَرْط. Right? It's not a condition. You don't have to be 7. The point is, you're there. Right? This kid knows what he's doing. وعدم المنافي من نحو حيض ومس ذكر حال الوضوء. So the person is holding his wife's hand while making wudu. Right? Your wudu is being broken while you're making wudu. لأنه إذا طرأ عليه أبطله فلا يصح مع وجوده. فتعبيري بذلك أعم من اقتصاره على عدم الحيض والنفاس. وعدم الحائل, there's no barrier. بين الماء والمغسول or الممسوح كشمع, there's wax. وعين حبر, right? There is a like clotted ink. وحناء بخلاف أثرها, right? So a clotted ink as opposed to the traces of ink. You write your name on your hand and there's nothing you could scratch off. It's fine. Or you take the henna off your hand, it's fine. Right? And then he's going to say, notice this, look at this, he says, خلافا لما فهمه المحشي. So this is book number 6, Ammar. So what's happened then is there's another hashia on this. And the muhashi, whoever he is, I don't know who that is, has written something. And now along comes Sharqawi and does an istidrak on this. Right? So now you come to your Salafi friend, he's like, we need to review. Habibi, it's already been reviewed. If you don't like the final review, that's fine. But it's not that it hasn't happened. We haven't sat around for the last 1,000 years saying, we worship Imam Shafi'i and Imam Shafi'i is right, and copying out Kitab al-Umm. In fact, the fact that we never talk about Imam Shafi'i is indicative of the fact that there's no taqlid. Simple as that, like simple observation. If we were just doing taqlid of Imam Shafi'i, why do we never quote him ever? It's just, right? Like we never even talk about him. We're not even talking about Imam Nawawi, Sharqawi, Qalyubi. This is what we're talking about. So this is right? So we can cry because it's frustrating. But from the other point of view, what it shows us, it says shiddat qimmat al-nuduj. It tells us how mature this ummah is and how mature this science is. It's not immature. If it was immature, it would need to be reviewed. That's the Salafi way of looking at things. We need to review this. Build, but review. And we say, no, so it's already been done. It's already been done. Right? What does Einstein do? Einstein did not invent zero. He did not invent algebra. He came along and he just put in one little tiny brick in this huge building. That's what he did. And we call him Einstein. Oh, an Einstein, but not really. He's not that amazing. He's amazing by virtue of the fact that what happened before him. And if he was a Salafi, he would just ignore them all. And he would have become, we would never say Einstein today. Does that make sense? Like there would be no Shafi without Malik. There would be no Nawawi without Shafi. There would be no Sharqawi without Nawawi. Right. But I'm quoting Sharqawi and I'm not quoting Nawawi. Right? So this is this very subtle, we repeat again, the cumulative nature of the aggregate or cumulative, result or product of civilization. That suddenly this one paper written by Muhammad Hashir, who's some guy from Kenya, who's like, well, what's that got to do with material science? Suddenly it's more important than anything else, not because he's more intelligent than everybody else, but because of where he comes in civilization. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Ammar, Muhammad?
نعم بارك الله فيك.
Yes.
Okay. Inshallah, we're waiting for your PhD paper. We're going to buy it, inshallah. Interestingly, just a side point, I'm just going to pause the recording.
Inshallah.
Okay, so useful point in the Hashia. So it says a barrier, okay? من الحائل الوسخ والقشف, I think it is. المتجمد, that's become hard, caked. إن كان من خارج, if it's from other than your body. بخلاف ما إذا كان من عرق. Okay, so your own dried sweat that has become caked and crystallized, right? Is that considered a barrier? Right? وكذا أقشرة الدمل, I believe, dummal like that, which is the what's it called? The exoskeleton of little bugs. بعد خروج ما فيها وإن سهلت إزالتها. This is an interesting point. So when we're looking at category number 2, right? Sometimes we're looking, when we say al-haja tanzilat manzilat al-darura, sometimes we're going to look at your specific situation, and sometimes we're not going to look at your specific situation. Sometimes we're going to say it's so general that it doesn't matter even if it's not difficult for you. For example, I'm flying from SFX San Francisco to Los Angeles, okay? And the flight leaves just before Fajr, okay? So basically I don't have to fast. I arrive and I don't have to fast today. So I arrive, I'm in business class. I have somebody waiting for me. He picks me up in my limousine, takes me to the Four Seasons, and chill the rest of the day. Like it was super easy. So why is it? What's the point? Why am I excused from fasting? Oh, because you're traveling. It's okay. Why is that an excuse? Because السفر بعمومه, right? فيه مشقة, right? In general, traveling is difficult. So we're just looking at traveling in general. Okay? So that's why. So the same thing here. وإن سهلت إزالتها, even if you could remove it. Right? Does that make sense? Right. So these are two different discussions here. So one is caked sweat and the like that's coming from yourself, and versus something else. Right. Otherwise, you could imagine, let's say somebody has a scab, right? You have a scab, and you have this big scab, and then one day it comes off, and it came off very easily, and then you realize, oh my God, subhanallah, I could have taken that scab off ages ago. That's a barrier now because it's not really part of me. So now my wudu, my ghusl didn't count. It's not like that. So why? Because the blood is from you. So it doesn't matter to begin with. Why? Because it's difficult. I mean, if the barrier is coming from within, that's quite hard to remove, right? So just overlooked. Right. And what it doesn't mention here, what it doesn't mention here is what about things like some people who do manual labor? Okay, I do manual labor. I'm a mechanic. I'm a farmer, and I have caked earth under my nails or caked oil under my nails. It's hard to get off. Is that excuse or not? I'm a painter, right? I'm a painter, and every now and then I have paint on my arm or something like that. So is this overlooked? According to Imam Ghazali and many, it's overlooked. That's the ikhtiyar. The school is not overlooked. Right. So in the Shafi'i school, then, we would say for somebody who has paint on their hand, number one, you're obliged to take time to get it off. Number two, you're going to pray and you're going to do qada. Right? Because you prayed without wudu and without tayammum. Now, the ikhtiyar of Imam Muzani, Ibn Mundhir, and Imam Ghazali, Imam Nawawi, is there's no such thing as praying validly now and repeating. That doesn't exist. That whole concept that we're going to see in tayammum of praying validly now and then repeating doesn't exist. So their ikhtiyar is, no, you just pray now and that's it. So basically you have paint on you, you try and get it off, can't get it off, okay, just pray and that's it. It's you know. So the bigger debate there is, if you were not capable of praying, not capable of making wudu or tayammum, what do you do? Do we say the prayer is not obligatory to begin with because Allah didn't give you the ability to pray? Or do we say the prayer has to be prayed later and that's it? So saqata, do we say saqata, khalas, there's no wujub, right? Or do we say it has to be prayed later? Or has to be prayed now and later? Or has to be prayed now and not later? Does that make sense? So that's what this discussion of paint on your hand represents, is a scenario where Allah has not given you the ability to fulfill the shurut of the prayer. What do we say now? Do we say there's no obligation to pray, aslan? Do we say there's an obligation to pray, but you only do it later? Do we say there's an obligation to pray now and later? Or is it you just pray now and that's it? Or do we say just do the best you can? Right? So the school is you pray now and later. Imam Nawawi, Ibn Mundhir, Imam al-Muzani is you pray now and that's it. That's the obligation. Just pray now and that's it. Does that make sense? You both following?
Yes.
Ammar? Yes. Okay. Right, and also when it says it's okay. And also things like the traces of oil. So you put cream on your hand and your hand is shiny. Okay, it's slippery, but there's nothing there. Like you couldn't scratch anything, right? It's fine, doesn't matter. ودخول الوقت في وضوء دائم الحدث كمستحاضة, right? So somebody who is incontinent, may Allah make us all healthy and protect us from al-haram, right? From decrepitude, being very old and sick. May Allah protect us. Okay, so somebody who is wudu that is continually being broken. Can I make wudu for dhuhr before dhuhr comes in? Yes. Can I make if my wudu is continually being broken? Can I make wudu for dhuhr before dhuhr comes in? No. فلو توضأ قبل دخوله لم يصح لأنه طهارة ضرورة, because it's not real, right? It is not a real what's it called? It's not a real purification. According to Ibn Mundhir, it is a real purification. According to the Hanafis, it is a real purification, right? So we say it's not a real purification. How do you know it's not a real purification? So, well, what would happen, Habibi, if you made tayammum and then it rained? What happens to your tayammum? So you're in the middle of the desert, there's no water at all, can't make wudu. So you made tayammum and prayed. Okay, and then it started to rain. What happened to your tayammum? It's broken. So therefore it's not real. It's like a temporary passport. It's not a real thing, right? It's not a real thing. And so we say it's taharatu darura. It's a fake, a fake purification. They say it's a real purification. Okay? So we say then it's this fake thing It's only valid under certain circumstances. What are the circumstances? When you're between a rock and a hard place. Okay, you're between a rock and a hard place. Okay, what is that rock and a hard place? Allah is saying, pray, but you can't pray. Pray, but you can't pray. Pray, but you can't pray. So in this weird situation, in that weird situation, you can make tayammum. But Allah is not asking you to pray dhuhr because it's not dhuhr time, right? So this is our logic, okay? And now we're going to find, where is it? In the Muwatta. Where is this? This is in the Muwatta. Let me just quickly find it. Excuse me. Muwatta. Tayammum. Let's find this. So now looking in the Muwatta of Imam Malik, and this tells us about taqlid in the Shafi school. That Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, he said the first textbook in the Shafi school is the Muwatta of Imam Malik. Right? So this tells us that Imam Shafi'i, to a great extent, is Maliki. Here, Bab at-Tayammum. Ah. So notice here, يتيمم لكل صلاة. Hmm. Trying to find the quote from the Sunnati something. Um, Give me a second. Da, 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 da. think it's going to be in the Sunan al-Sabir. This is a Sunnah Saghir by al-Bayhaqi. Just trying to find it here. Discussions of where. So this is part of it, right? This is part of it. So it says here, with the chain transmission. This is going to be the same kind of quote that Imam Malik is going to be narrating from Ibn Umar, that he said, "Yatayammamu li kulli salah." You do it for each prayer, i.e., وَإِن لَمْ يُحْدِث, right? And it says here, and it's also narrated from Ali ibn Abbas, Amr ibn As, that you do that for each one. But it says, I want to say specific when it mentions time. Doesn't mention it. So when you say make tayammum for each prayer, that means for each prayer time, right? It doesn't technically have to mean that, but I'm pretty sure it mentions the. Okay, there's something totally different. It's about the Kaaba now. So notice this is not a hadith, right? This is not a hadith. This is from Nafi'. يتيمم. So here, let's try and find this. I'm pretty sure it's in the Muwatta anyway. Search, pretty sure this is in the Muwatta. But this is in the Muwatta. It has that. So it doesn't mention about the prayer time specifically, but it does mention specifically you do it for each prayer. Mentions here. Here we go. وسئل مالك. Here we go. Look. وسئل مالك عن رجل تيمم لصلاة حضرت ثم حضرت صلاة أخرى أتيمم لها أم يكفيه تيمم ذلك فقال بل يتيمم لكل صلاة لأن عليه أن يبتغي الماء لكل صلاة فمن ابتغى الماء فلم يجده فإنه يتيمم. Right? So notice Imam Malik's logic and Imam Shafi's logic are exactly the same. Imam Ahmad's logic as well is correct. So there is a position in the Hanbali school that says no, but basically the Hanbali school and the Shafi school and the Maliki school are one on this topic. So it's one thought process, one continued thought process. Okay. So is Imam Shafi a muqallid of Imam Malik? 100% no. Is he muta'athir jiddan? Yes. Is Imam Ahmad a muqallid of Imam Shafi'i? No. Is he muta'athir jiddan? Is he really affected by it and the precedent is very weighty on him? Yes. So this is what I'm saying is the percentage of ijtihad decreases and the percentage of taqlid increases. Does that make sense? So we don't quote the Maliki school, but in reality, we are neo-Malikis. That's what we are. Just like anybody, anybody writing on, that you any way of thinking, it's your branch of something else, or something that comes before you. Okay. Khair. Let's find a good place to stop. So it says ودخول وقت في وضوء So the da'im al-hadath is exactly the same as the mutayammim. He's in the same situation. كمستحاضة ولو توضأ قبله لم يصح لأنه طهارة ضرورة like تيمم ولا ضرورة قبل الوقت like تيمم وغيرها من زيادتي كمعرفة كيفية الوضوء. You don't know how to make wudu. Right? Meaning, I think that I don't know what parts are sunnah, which parts are not. So if you generally don't know what's going on, it's fine. But if you specifically think that certain sunnahs, a certain fard are obligate or sunnah, it's a problem. بأن يميز فرائضه من سننه وهذا في حق العالم وهو من اشتغل بالفقه زمنا يميز فيه بين ذلك أما العامي فالشرط في حقه أن لا يعتقد بفرض نفلا عينا that specific thing سواء اعتقد كلها فرضا you think all sunnahs of the prayer of the wudu are fard, that's fine. أو البعض. So the issue is why is this an issue is because the way you're interacting with that action is you're interacting it as if it was a sunnah. Even if you're doing it, you're interacting as if it's a sunnah, right? Like I'm not saying, hey, can you pay me back? I'm like, yeah, here's some charity, bro. It's like, bro, it is not charity. I'm asking you to pay me, right? Can you pay me back? I'm like, yeah, whatever. So like, he knows that I'm not accepting the fact that I owe him money. He said, no, Fareed, I don't even care if you pay me or not. You just got to accept that you owe me money. So there's a different moral thing. So I owe this to Allah. I have to do this as opposed to something extra. Right? That's what we're talking about here. Khair. And it says Bab al-Ahdath. Inshallah, we will come next week. Inshallah, next week we'll have a class. We may not have a class next week. Okay, so this next few weeks is going to be a bit rocky because I'm traveling, inshallah. So I'll try my best. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakum khair. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Inshallah, we will next class begin with the matan, inshallah, right? From Mahalli. So, if you have a chance, I know you're all busy, read ahead, there's innamal, everything it's not fiqh is really hard, right? And you need to read things a lot and think about things a lot and come back to it a lot. It takes quite a long time. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop here. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Sheikh, question if you have a minute.
Go ahead, yeah.
Or maybe. So